Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at using Compressor to compress video on your Mac. So Compressor is an app from Apple. It's been around for a long time as a standalone purchase, but now more people have access to Compressor than ever before because it's part of Apple Creator Studio. You can download it here from the App Store, and if you've got a Creator Studio subscription, you can just get it. Now what Compressor does is it takes video and it recompresses it so that you get perhaps a smaller file or a file that's in a specific format for a specific purpose. Typically people use it with Final Cut Pro as the last step in exporting the video, but you could use it with any video. For instance, video that you export from iMovie or raw video clips that you take with your camera. One of the problems with iMovie is that when you're done a project, you've got very limited options for exporting. Just a few settings here that you can play with. If you want something more specific or you want to get a smaller file, then you can use Compressor. So if you are starting in iMovie, you want to export with the best quality that you can. Ideally, you would use ProRes, which is kind of like uncompressed video, but you can see the final size is huge. However, if you don't plan on keeping this intermediate step file, you can export it as this huge file and then in Compressor get your final version and then delete this huge one when you're done. If you want to be more conservative and you're not that concerned about quality, you can just go with like the high quality here and better quality compression and get a file that's still probably bigger than you want, but it won't take up as much space in the meantime. You can also take files directly from your camera or perhaps in your photos library. You want to export using the unmodified original unless you've applied some effects, and then you can use this export option here. And then you just want to set the quality as high as you can. So once you've got a video ready to compress, you can launch Compressor and then you'll get an interface that can be a bit intimidating if you've never used Compressor before. It doesn't really look obvious as to what you will do to compress a video. First thing you want to do is expand the left side. Click this button here to see the left sidebar. And now you've got everything you need to compress a video. First thing you want is the video. So you're going to take the video like this one here from the Finder and drag it to this area where it shows Add File. Then it adds it here, but it doesn't know what to do with it yet. You got to give it some compression settings. Now on the left here you've got a bunch of built-in compression settings that come in different categories. So for instance, you could just go and look at the Apple devices category and it gives you some settings for viewing on Apple devices, like for instance on your iPad or Apple TV. So you can pick what you want. Let's say instead of 4K, maybe you want to go down to HD here. You can select this one and you simply drag it over and add it here. And it adds it as a preset. You can actually add more than one. So you can export one video into 3 or 4 different files if you want, each using different settings. Once you've got a preset here, you can select it like I have here. Click on this button and it will bring up the settings for that preset on the right and you can modify them for this one-time use. So you can go to video here and you could see the video settings and you could change it if you want. There are a lot of different settings here, but I'm going to point out the most important ones. First, you've got the size. So this is all about up to. Here it's set to up to 1920 by 1080, meaning that if the video is actually smaller in dimensions, it'll stick with that smaller size. It won't scale it up. But if it's larger, it'll scale it down. The next setting is the codec. So H.264 is the general one that you want to use for most purposes. But if you're just using this on your own devices, HEVC will actually get you smaller file sizes. It just may not work with some older hardware. And then there's bitrate. So for bitrate, you can turn off automatic and you can play with this number. Now, this number is going to actually determine the real file size that you're going to get here. For instance, it's set now to 10,000 kilobits per second, which will literally give you that. The quality is going to depend on hitting that mark. If you want a smaller file, you can drag this down and say go to under 3000 kbps and you'll get a smaller file from that. So if your goal is small file, then you want to bring down kbps. If it's still not small enough, then you want to try again, but with an even smaller kbps. Or if you notice the quality suffers because of a low number here, then you're going to have to just increase it or make tough decisions. In general, the frame size and the kbps, those are the main factors for how big the file is. And it's always file size versus quality. A smaller file size is going to mean lower quality. A higher file size is going to mean higher quality. You also want to scroll all the way down here to the bottom and you've got a quality setting. You can play with this for a little bit more control. You've got a bunch of different types of recompression to recompress this. And then you've got a quality setting here. So you can go to best versus fastest if you don't mind waiting a bit for getting a slightly higher quality file. Now, you may not want to actually use one of these built-in presets, but instead add a custom one. You can click the plus button here, say new preset, and then you have to pick a starting point. So you can pick Apple devices, for instance, or MPEG-4 is a common starting point. Name it something that makes sense to you, like if it's for a project and you want to have all the videos be the same quality. And then click OK. And then you can select this here, change these settings, and remember those changes. So you can keep reusing this one. I'm going to remove that preset from there and drag this new one here. And I'm going to set the quality and size and everything to what I want. In this case, I'll change the average bit rate to make it much smaller to give me a much smaller file size. If you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 3,000 others that support MACMOST through Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. And now you want to pick the destination. You can see here it says location and it's set to something called source. In other words, wherever the video is now, just save the new file there. You can control click, right click, or two finger click on this and choose a different location. And you could see a couple here or choose other, choose any location if you want. You can also click here and actually add new locations if you've got some standard folder you want to just have available there. So once you've got this all set, you click Start Batch and it will start processing. And it goes from the current tab to the active tab. So this is what's active. You can see current is now cleared out. You can actually start working on your next compression project while this one is actually processing that video. And then once it is finished here, it'll disappear from active and go to completed. Now back here in the Finder, we can see that original file we dragged in and see the size, and we can see the new compressed version here. If we double click on this, it'll open up a QuickTime player and we can preview it and see if the quality is what we want. You'll probably observe if the file size is much smaller that indeed the quality is less. But if you play around with the settings enough, you could probably get the quality to be only slightly less, but for a big savings in file size. So those are the basics, but Compressor is a really complex tool that does lots of different things. So without spending hours going into detail, here's just some quick tips to help you explore further. When you're all set up with a video and a preset, you can go to the top here and there's a line that you could drag left and right. The left side will show you the original and the right side will show you the result of your settings here. Unfortunately, it doesn't take everything into account, like for instance, the kbps, but it would take things into account, like for instance, frame size. If we said we wanted to limit the frame size to say 640 by 360, then we could see here on the right is a lower quality as the output since it's only 640 pixels across. You could also use the little timeline here to add markers. So you could go in here and then add a marker or use M, and these markers would be imprinted in the resulting video. And some video services that you upload to and other uses like in QuickTime Player will actually have those as chapters. In addition, you could also position this to what you want to use for the poster frame for the exported file and set that right here. And you can see it marked. On the right side under video, you do have the ability to add effects. So you could add an effect like changing the brightness and contrast of the entire video, or adding a fade in, fade out to the video, removing noise, lots of different things that you could apply across the entire video. And in addition, you can add a watermark graphic or a text overlay and use that as a sort of text watermark as well. Note that in addition to video settings, you've got audio settings here. This could be another way to save some file size. Perhaps you've got a video where the audio isn't that important. It's mostly silent. So you may not want it to be at a super high bit rate and save a little space that way. But note, you could also add just an audio file. Compressor will compress audio as well as video. And then you've got some audio format presets here that you could use and then customize to create a compressed audio file. Once you've set up a preset, you don't necessarily need to actually even run Compressor to use it anymore. You can select it here and then save it as a droplet, an icon that you can drag and drop a video file to, and it will then perform the compression. Or you can click here where it says watch folders and add a watch folder, and anytime a video is dropped to that watch folder, a compression is automatically applied to that video. And while you don't need to be using Final Cut Pro to use Compressor, it does have a special relationship with Final Cut Pro. In fact, if you go in Final Cut Pro to File and then Share, you can add destination and you can select Compressor presets. And then you can select, say, a custom preset that you made like this, and you can see it's added to Final Cut Pro's Destinations window here. So once you've created a preset in Compressor, you can simply use it inside of Final Cut Pro as an export option. So as you can see, there's a lot to explore with Compressor. And if you've got an Apple Creator Studio subscription, you've got Compressor. So go ahead and start using it for your video or audio projects. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. Want to know about every new MACMOST video each week? Sign up for the absolutely free MACMOST email newsletter at macmost.com/newsletter.